this week's Torah portion, Torah talks about Tzara'at, which isn't the leprosy that we know as, what's it called? Today they have a name for it today, but I don't remember what it's called, but it's not the same thing. What this is a uncleanness, a ritual uncleanness that is contagious. It's the uncleanness, the purity that is contagious. And so, and what's interesting, huh? Hansen's disease. Yeah, it's not Hansen's disease. This is just impure, being impure. You can't go to the temple. You can't go on the ground. You can't eat food or dedicated food, whatever, that type of stuff. And you have to be separated. Why? Because it resembles death. And that's why when we read in here, the Tzara'at is basically death. That's why the people who are declared unclean have to wear unclean clothes, torn clothes, a veil, a torn veil or whatever, but their hair can't be kept because it's a showing that they have death on them, that they are impure because of the death of this disease, that's Tzara'at. It resembles death. Okay. Now the thing is, though, is that Hansen's disease is unclean, but Hansen's disease isn't contained. So, but this has to do with ritual uncleanness, and it has to do that God will not be in the presence of death. Okay, that's why God sets this stuff up for people. That's why, which we'll learn later, we talk about the Aruma Para, the red heifer, and about being purified. We read about that earlier, about purifying those who have touched dead bodies, right? Or been in the presence of a dead body. Why at the three main festivals, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, they go through and mark all the burial places or where there's a dead body so people see that so they don't step on. Just stepping on it would make you unclean. About this stuff too much today because we have no temple. So we can't bring offerings. But we should, in the sense, at least cleanse ourselves, right? Put on, take a shower or a bath and put on clean clothes, right? Which is a good thing anyways, because some people might be months before they do something like that. But it has to do with purified. See, even in our families, in our house, well, here's the thing. That's what I was going to get to. That's okay. Is that what we've read about and what we understand is that generally leprosy, or we won't use the word leprosy because it's incorrect, but Tzara'at, which is a skin disease, okay, the uncleanness, the ritual impurity, is generally caused by gossip. Or an utterance of oath to God. But it's basically something what we speak. Okay? And sometimes maybe the house is being not used for what it's supposed to be used. Maybe it might be evil, something evil in there, or something. They're doing something that's not supposed to be. Or God has tried to get their attention and they haven't learned from it, so he'll do that. But what it does is it causes a separation. See a separation that here's God's people dwelling in here, just like we read about the 4 men in Israel and the prophets there that decided that we can't go in there because we'll die, because we'll starve to death, and well, here they'll come, we'll probably. So let's go surrender. If they let us live good, if they don't, well. And here they found that they were gone. Nobody was there. And they more than likely go, oh yeah, let's eat, we found gold. They realize, you know what, this is wrong. We can't do this. We got to go let them know. They still weren't allowed. And so, and it may, if you touch a person with that, in essence, you would be unclean. Okay? And the interesting thing is, a lot of people don't realize, they don't think about it, is that Yeshua, when he healed that person with Tzara'at, he became unclean. So he would have had to go and walk. Okay? And that's why it talks about stuff that keeps us separated from God, right? He's taken upon us, upon himself. And we need to realize, that's why I talk about that, like the church is a man-made thing, okay? It's not made by God. God never designed it or created it. It was a man-made idea to separate themselves from Israel, okay? But the thing is, we can use the word hall, which means an assembly, which is where we get the word synagogue and where we get the word church from, okay? So those who belong to the kahal of God are when Yeshua comes back, not a rapture, but he's going to gather his people and bring them back to Jerusalem. This before, where he is going to build, and we will be part of that, just as the children of Israel helped in building the tabernacle, we will help in building the third tabernacle. Okay? And then he'll get everything set. Everything. Yeshua is going to do the same thing again. Get the of Aaron work again, doing their jobs, offering up sacrifices and offerings and everything. And he, as the prince, he's called the prince, will be the one who is responsible for bringing the offerings and all the offerings for festivals and Sabbath and it's his responsibility to bring it for the people. Era. And so once he gets that established, then we know that he will gather his army and he will go conquer the nations. Like it also says, and those nations that survive will come every year to the festival of Sukkot. Remember, we talked about too, that's the festival of the nations. During those 8 days, the 7 days, 70 oxen are, but on the 8th day, which means new one, and everybody's united with Israel in that sense, okay? With the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah coming up, the Messianic coming up, Messianic era, that'll be the 7,000th year. But after that's over with, then we enter the new covenant era, the 8th day. The new covenant then will be in complete function at that time, where we won't need to have be taught anything about God or be telling people to believe in God or anything like that, because God, we'll all know God. We won't have a need for a teacher, and we'll know, and that he's going to write it in our hearts and on our minds. And when we take a look at that, if we look at that in even today's understanding of things, right now in our DNA we have a DNA of sin. Our desire, our out for other people, right? And God, with all his rules, takes that fun away. That's what our and so it's easier for us to sin in this world right now than it is to do good, right? And but it will be changed in the twinkling of an eye. That new body that we are given, will be just like what we have here, except that in the DNA, that sin will be gone and will be replaced with righteousness. Okay. So and His Torah will be completely in us. We won't be able to. We'd have to really go against the nature of that in order to sin, but we won't want to do so. And that is the difference between Adam and Eve when they were first created in the garden. They didn't have a choice. Be just like the adversary in a sense, knowing everything, being like God, right? And so that's our fallen state. And so when they fell, not only did they bring death into the world, but it changed our DNA. That's why a human being cannot be in the presence of God, because that DNA is still in us. It's made a way for us to draw close to God. And see, the sacrifices therefore, they really didn't take sin away. They really weren't all the sacrifices had to do with purity, not just sin, guilt, stuff like that. All had to do with purity. Why? Because it was designed to help bring. That's what gifts draw to bring us closer to God. That's what they're for. That's what they were for. And Yeshua doing what he did, he brings us even closer. Even though we see that in the 1,000-year reign of the Messiah, we'll still continue to bring sacrifice and offerings and stuff because God still requires it. Why? Because we're still will be under the Torah even at that time. But it's at the time of the end of that 1,000 years when the adversary is released. He gathers from people who have lived through this, able to create this big army to go up against God and be given, will commence. The adversary and his followers will be defeated, and then comes the great judgment where everybody is judged. And everybody will go before God. Righteous and evil alike will go before God to receive either reward or punishment. And it's the resurrection. And that's the other thing with this too, is it's teaching us, see, these people are dead. They are to be looked at as dead, separated from the people. But when God heals them and they go before the priest, well, who's the priest represent? It represents the Messiah, right? Over and sees that he's no longer contagious. He's no, right? Then he can be welcomed back into the kingdom. Right? He's got to go through the process for purification, but once he does, that's like dead. I mean, you were alive and then you get this. It's like being dead. But when you are over it, it's like being raised from the dead. And that's a big thing that we need to understand and focus on too. The most important thing that we have in our walk with God is that he will resurrect us. That there is, see, our beliefs should, and our understanding should mirror those of the Pharisees, because Paul and the others believed the same thing the Pharisees did. There was no difference other than that we believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. Okay, and there was thousands of Pharisees who joined in the belief of Yeshua, but they didn't change anything. They just changed, Yeshua is the Messiah. So we continue to do what we're doing, but now we know. Just like James, the brother of Yeshua, who is the leader of the Messianic community. Look at the tens of thousands of believers, Jewish believers, who have come to believe and are zealous for the Torah. The reason they're zealous for the Torah is because they have seen the picture. They've seen what Yeshua has done. He is the Torah. And it's not been done away with. And I have to warn you, there's a uprising right now going on to resurrect the replacement theology. I mean, it's still been around, but now it's really gaining strength. They call themselves Christian nationalists. And you see them, they've gained a lot of power in the United States and around the world. And they're basically, I've sent a thing on Facebook from First Fruits of Zion. Jacob Franzak has taken their teaching and gone through and lets them speak, but then he goes and shows where they're wrong. He's taken scripture and showing where they're wrong with this. And basically their whole idea is to let Israel go away. We should not be supporting Israel. Okay? That's the other thing. And they're growing. Yes, they do like Trump, but Trump is not a Christian nationalist, just so you know. He is an American patriot, loves America, wants to see America come back, he wants to see America back to God that way. But not, I mean, he loves Israel. He supports Israel. He's given even of his money to Israel for the military, for gas masks and other as well, very much love. And so these, and they're not white nationalists. Okay, I'm sorry to say this because it's different races, if you want to say that, are part of this. Okay, so I know I hear a lot of people say, well, it's right national or white supremacy, but it's not. So just people from different colors and stuff as part of that doesn't mean that it's right. We really have to watch out for that. But their main teaching is replacement teaching, or what we call dispensationalism. Okay, which is where replacement theology came from, where they believe that the church Israel no longer has a place in God's kingdom. Okay, that's what they believe, and it was very strong for hundreds of years up until the Holocaust. And when people realized what was going on, that kind of went away for a little while. I mean, it was still there, but it kind of went away for a little while. But it's been revived again. Really got to be watching out. And they have another teaching out there I'm going to try and get out there too that Jacob does. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's really leading the effort for this stuff. And but the thing is that, so we have to watch out for that stuff, that stuff is out there.
You got to be careful too, because they try to throw patriotism in there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the Democrats do with their willingness to allow women to be raped, to go against laws that would help stop trafficking, just like they did just in Minnesota, and they've tried to do it in Washington, where they had laws that were to help protect American citizens, especially American girls, and they voted against it. And so we got to be careful about that stuff too. And I'm not saying the Republicans are good either, because they have their issues too. It's political, it's man-made. You can't trust it. You can't put your hope in any of that. The only thing you can put hope in is God and His Word, and that's it. So we see a lot of stuff. But the thing is, yeah. But what we got to look at here is that when Yeshua comes back, He is going to gather all those who have taken hold of Israel, all those of Israel, of His people, and those who have taken hold of Israel, and return them to the land. Okay. And that's why we really have to watch out for that, because we need to be a voice of light for people who are coming or believing this stuff. Because I'm sorry to say, they won't be part of that, because if they reject Israel, they're rejecting the Messiah. That's plain and simple. Okay, and we can't reject Israel, because if we do, we reject the Messiah. But when we reject the Messiah, we're rejecting Israel. We can't do that. We have to accept both, because that's when God talks about the Messiah, and he talks about interchangeable. You can't have one without the other, okay? It's through Israel that God brought us to Messiah. But it's through Messiah who brings us to Israel. Okay? And with Tzara'at, it's a spiritual disease in that sense. It's sowing a something spiritual in us that is lacking. Remember, we're going through this stuff right now in Taming the Tongue by Mark Kinzer. And he talks about it there that, it shows the scriptures and everything that our tongue can be used to give life. It takes a lot to tame the tongue. That's what it says too, right? But one who has tamed his tongue is perfect. And say about other people, we should be building them up, not tearing them down.
Thing that we are allowed to ridicule, and that is idolatry. And it is not the people, it is the idolatry itself.
Yeah. Yep. Just as God, when he created everything, he spoke it into existence, right? Let it be as I have said, abracadabra. Abracadabra, yes. Let it be as I have said.
Pull a rabbit out of his head and pull the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So even though we know people be like, we got to be careful what we say about other people. I mean, there are times when it should be said, but it should be said. So somebody is a child molester, but nobody knows about it, but this other person has found out. Then they need to don't go to the leader, talk to him, tell him what's going on. That's what you do. Then you call the rest of the not the congregation, but the leaders in the congregation. That's what we do. What are we going to do? We need to bring the person before. Find out what's going on. Right? This is just one example. There's other things that are out there too. And last week, when we were about Nadab and Abihu, who God killed because they brought unauthorized fire. Unauthorized fire. Well, it's fire that's not from the altar. And they should have known better. Brought fire different source, not the altar. And so that's why, if they had brought it from the altar, I don't think any of that stuff would have happened. If they brought it from someplace other than the altar, that's why it's called profane fire. Trying to do things their own way, exactly. And that's what we got to be careful of too. Like I was saying last week, God is a God of order. Paul even talks about that. He has an order for worship. And when we get out of that order, it doesn't please God. Well, we might think it's pleasing God,
Well,
and we got to be careful.
How was it kindled, right? How was the fire on the altar kindled? And what were the orders to the fire on the altar? It was undying fire.
Right.
It was directly commanded by God.
Yep.
That wasn't.
Yep. And when we understand this, even with the aspect of the nidah of when a woman gives birth to a son or a daughter, we see that for a daughter it's twice as long. For a son, it's 13 days, 14 days, something like that. Can't remember. I know it's 33 days. I'm sorry, 33 days total. But for a girl being born, it's 66. There is a reason for that. Is that a girl born has the potential to give birth. And so that's why it's doubled, because birth creating life in essence. And remember, like I said, it's not that that's a sin. See, I've heard people say this, well, how come does God give us this natural thing called our period, but yet he says we've sinned? How does that? It's not sin. It's not. To be unclean doesn't mean you've sinned, okay? There's impurity and there's impure and pure, okay? all it does in these senses, what they're talking about is that we have become physically impure to be able to enter the presence of God. Okay? So God has given us a way to draw close. Okay? And these are the rules, though. These are people that can't, even a priest that has damaged parts or is not able to serve him. He's able to still eat the food that is the priest, but he is not able to serve in the temple or the tabernacle, right? It has to do with pure, even household, we call it shalom bait, peace in the house. It's very important in Judaism, in Orthodox Judaism primarily, is that we don't do things to bring damage to our relationship, our wife, our children. We do things that bring peace into the house, right?
It's even I can't remember the term, but also bringing embarrassment to a fellow Jew, for instance.
Well, yeah, and that would be part of, that's why it would be part of the Lashon Hara, evil tongue and stuff, right? We're not to shame other people. That's not our job. I know sometimes that you want to, but we are to correct, but it needs to be in the right spirit of not embarrassing, but of building up, right? That we're here to build up. We're to be, God created us in His image, right? So we need to follow that. What you should call them the names to get their attention, right? Hypocrites, whitewashed. I mean, we see that a lot. And also in the table of or knocking over the tables of the money changers and stuff, because they were thieves. They should never have been in there. The priests should. The priests were in cahoots with them at the time as well.
The funny thing is also money changers in the temple itself.
They weren't in the temple itself. They were on the area of the area of the Gentiles.
Right.
So, and the reason is because you can't bring a image of a false god or whatever into the temple, right? So they would exchange their money for temple currency. A lot of people don't understand. They're like, why? Well, that's why, so that they could bring in the proper coins without the images. And so that's basically what it's about. But they were cheating the people. So,
Not as good as my dollar.
yeah.
Well, your dollar isn't as good as my shekel.
Yes, I think so, but they.
Yeah, they would weigh them, but they used unfair weights. So they were actually taking more of idolatry currency from the people than giving them what they were supposed to have for the temple currency.
Based off of the temple shekel.
Yep. Yeah, and it was gold or silver, so it should weigh the same, but it didn't. And nobody really caught it. Yeshua did.
At least nobody did anything about it.
Or nobody did anything about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
When the Kohen went into the house or when he inspected the person that had the leprosy, did he have to go and be cleansed?
No, because they'd have to come outside the house. Now, when they went in the house, the Kohen could go in as long as he didn't touch anything. He's just there to look at it. That's what it says. But while the house is locked up, okay, anybody goes in during that time, they would become unclean.
But what about the person? If they were inspecting the person to see if he had.
They're inspecting the person. They're just standing there. They're having them move their hair, whatever. Look, they don't touch them. Yep, they don't. Have them mark, like we would probably take a permanent marker, Sharpie or something, mark around where the edge of it, and then we'd watch it. Well, we would do that ourselves, Now, if he couldn't reach it, then he'd probably have one of his family members do it. But the priest would never touch the person.
Also, I think before you went into the house, you removed everything else. So
Yeah, everything else was taken out of the house and everything. So, do the cleaning or those were assigned by the Levites would go in and do that was part of their job they were supposed to do is part of the temple service. Even after the tabernacle quit moving, that was some of the things to assigned to. So that would include well, anything that would cause a priest to become unclean, they would do that part. So that's why a priest even today, when they go on a road trip, they make sure they go ahead on the map or whatever and see where graveyards and stuff are, and make sure that even a shadow from the tree on the road could cause them, in their belief, to become unclean, and so they'll avoid that type of stuff.
I never heard that part before.
Yep. Yeah, it goes on even today. Yep.
Kind of reminds me of exactly, Pharaoh was compared to this, of the story of so after he went into the books of the various pantheons of the different gods, or idols, he was compared to, in Talmud, of the servant of a Kohen, and he could not find his master, so he went into a graveyard and went up to the graveyard, two men digging the grave, and asked him, have you seen my master? And he said, oh, you foolish servant, since when have you known a Kohen to go into a graveyard? Your master is not here.
Yeah. So anyways, like I'm saying, all this stuff has to do with purity, and death cannot be in the presence of God, And when Nadab and Abihu offered their they offered a profane fire, a holy fire, okay, and that's why God killed them, and why it said that God will purify them, right? Purify who will purify. And so their bodies became pure, but still they were dead, and so they had to be taken outside of the camp and disposed of in a clean place. And it also goes on to say, because people really need to realize this, is that, even though it was for the priests, we should also take heed to it, because Israel does, is alcohol. If you're doing God's service, you shouldn't be drinking before you do the service, right? Because alcohol, I don't care, any type of drugs that causes your mind to be altered is wrong, okay? It's wrong, especially if you're doing it so much that you're doing it on purpose to get drunk and stuff like that, because it causes a mixing of what is good and what is bad. It causes them to blur together. And so we have to really be careful of that, I mean, we have wine on Sabbaths and festivals, and sometimes we have wine otherwise, but we don't do it to get drunk or anything like that. And so there's nothing wrong with having a beer when it's hot out. Going to sit down having a beer. You're not doing it to get drunk. You just drink, right? For some people with like marijuana and stuff, it's if it's medical that they need it, okay, that's one thing. But for other people to be doing it just to get high, that's wrong. Sin. Okay. And then would be
A medical condition, that would be the same. They couldn't perform their service.
well, no, it's been taken just because if they're altering their mind with it, they're taking too much, just like we would with like oxycodone and stuff like that. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. But if you're doing it to get stoned, that's wrong.
And if you're taking it for a medical purpose, you take a little.
Yeah, and most of the people I know that do use that for medical purposes aren't looking to get high. They're just looking to help with what it helps them with. That's it. Okay. Huh?
God gave us that marijuana plant too, and all
Yeah.
the other plants to
Yeah.
help us with our.
But as human beings, we tend to overdo it and look for too much of a good thing, right? Like if we had too much salt or something, we can't eat it, right? Yeah, it does stink. It smells like a skunk. And so,
And also, it's a miserable state.
yeah.
I knew people that.
And it gets on their clothes. When I'm out in the public, if I smell it, I'll just go, "Hey, I think there's a skunk around here."
Friends there, the guy
Or Ren Fair, yeah.
When we started talking about, oh yeah, the skunk lives here underneath the place.
Yeah, so, but anyways, idea here is purity, is, you know, and without the temple, we don't go through these things. So, but there are things like in the Orthodox community, a Jewish woman who has her time of the month, they have a separate bed that they will sleep in. That's part of what it even says here, you know, that they do that. And the idea is, I mean, we don't have a temple, so we remain pure. That's why we have a mikvah. We go in mikvah. The woman will go to the mikvah after her time is over with, not to cleanse her body and stuff from that. She'll take a bath before she goes there, or a shower, clean up, and then she goes there to purify her spirit, spiritual purification. Okay, that's what that's about. Also, men before festivals or even Tzara'at will go and have a mikvah, preparing themselves for purity and festivals. Or a major change in their life, major spiritual change. That's I think for mikvahs too, or immersion, what they call baptism, is a spiritual change. One of the reasons why the believers in Yeshua would get baptized wasn't necessarily because there was anything magical about it, but it was a public statement. Although usually mikvahs are private affairs, but they, like we see with John and the Jordan River, that's a different type, but it's still the same type of thing. And it's a purification, but it's also a change in direction. Okay, now, not that the Jews had to change direction, but they had to understand that Yeshua was the Messiah. So now the baptism or the immersion is to identify. And it's not something new either. The rabbis still do it today. Students of theirs will do the school of their rabbi. Okay, they still do it today. And so in essence, when we are baptized, we are immersed into the school of Yeshua. And it has to do with purification as well, purity of the soul, purity of the spirit. And with that, we're not dead. You know, we are alive, but we're still human beings in this body that's going to die. And so, and we're still attuned to those things that are evil in this world, to unclean things, impure things, you know. God has separated us out. Israel is separate for a reason, not because they're better than everybody. I know I've heard people say, well, you think you're better than us? No.
That's kind of that older
Yeah.
bloodline.
Yeah. Yep. It's because God has called us as a people, called our ancestors to be a people holy, separate to God. That's why He gave us how we are to dress, how to dress, what we can eat. You know, it's okay if the Gentiles and stuff want to eat their pork and their shellfish, stuff like that, right? But for God's people, Israel, He said, no, you're going to be separate from that. Yep. Torah sanctifies us too. And that's what we always say, you know, blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments, right? And sanctified is also another word for set us apart. Okay?
And that's one thing I've never understood too. You know, I hear so many people and they seem to get insulted by being called Noahide, right? You're taking on the seven. Well, you don't want to take on all of the responsibilities, so why do you want to claim the 10? Right? What's the...
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe if you're going to keep the Torah, that, you know, as it says in the Didache, the apostles wrote, you know, do as much as you can, keep as much as you can. You know, not every the commandments and stuff of the Torah isn't necessarily isn't for the Gentiles. It's for welcome to keep it. But if you're going to keep it, make sure you're keeping it correct. Like I said, I've seen Gentiles who wear tzitzit, right?
Oh, yeah, but they put,
But they won't have a kippah, or they'll wear belt loops, keep tzitzit on their belt loops, which doesn't do. Yeah, and or they'll just wear stuff that, but not like, you know, the tzitzit and the kippah, and they'll go into like a McDonald's or something like that in a Jewish community,
oh, yeah.
and people are like, he's Jewish, what's he doing in here?
You know, for that one, one of the things that my uncle Steve, he's in the military, and what used to drive him crazy, there would be cosplayers out in like a military like type uniform for cosplay.
Yeah.
They drink alcohol.
Yeah.
And he was in an MOS that, you know, if you're on active duty and you're military, you're out in the community, you don't.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just if you're on active uniform, you don't drink alcohol. You're not supposed to. The only time that they do allow that is at certain military gatherings and stuff. But even then, you're not allowed to get drunk or anything.
I saw this one video, and it was supposed to be U.S. military versus Russian military.
Mm-hmm.
For U.S. military, they found a video of these women who were not wearing proper military uniforms, and they were like supposed to be for what is it? They're just there to look pretty, basically. Their uniforms, like showing off their cleavage, and they had high heeled on.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not the U.S. military. And then for the Russian military, they weren't. It wasn't even a military group.
No.
It was. They weren't even.
It happens. Yep. So, anyways, as we go this week, we just need to think about these things. I mean, these are things that we really need to know about, even though there is no sprinkling and stuff like that we can go through because there's no temple. But we should, be aware of these things around us. And, God has given us the ability to take a shower, take a bath when these things happen, and it's something that God has brought up to me because I don't always do that. I don't think about it all the time, but just because it's life, things happen in life. Dead body, spider. So you're gonna want bodies, dead bugs, but talking about. But human bodies, that's the primary thing. I mean, you touch a dead animal, you don't have to go through the 7-day process of if you touch a human body or touch a grave. Exactly. So. But anyways, but God wants us to be purified. He wants us to be separate. We need to honor the Torah in the best way we can. And if you're Jewish, you're obligated. It's not. The thing is that for God. So, as you talk about the Noahide laws, the 7 Noahide laws, those are a good start. But even the apostles writing the Didache to the Gentile believers said, do as many as you can, keep as much as you can.
And I guess what I was trying to say is less that it's not discouraging people from doing it, but if you're going to take on the 10, you realize that there are that the 613 are attached to it, and you're not going to get rid of Torah.
Yeah, and the Torah will be new heavens and a new covenant that God says He's going to make with His people, with Israel and with Judah. That includes Israel. Then we'll see right now we have a taste of the new covenant, but it's not here yet. It's not in force yet. But it will be. It will be, because right now we still got to be taught. We still got to learn. And it says in that time too that eighth day and the world to come, as we call it, the knowledge of God will be like the seas. That's how full it will be. How full we'll know. We won't have to be taught. They'll be grafted in. What? Torah? Yeah, it is. It's because of the Septuagint. When they did the Septuagint, they translated into Greek. They didn't have a word that was there, so they used a word that meant law. And that's where the confusion comes from. I mean, because the Torah does have laws in it, but it also has other types of instructions. It has other things in it that aren't law, but they're there for us, So even though it have 613 commandments, not all of them are commandments. A lot of them are just how to do things. Yeah. Huh? A good idea. Yeah.
Right, not all of them are for everybody either.
No, they're not for everybody, as we know. There are commandments for Gentiles. There are commandments for women. There are commandments for men. There are commandments for when we live in the land of Israel. There's commandments for when we don't live in the land of Israel. There's commandments when there's a temple, and there's commandments for when we don't have a temple, So it just depends. So, anyway. Study. Keep it on our right? So when we sleep, so we have a blessing in the morning when we first get up, and a blessing that we say the last thing we do before we go to sleep.
See, sometimes I do my best thinking while I'm sleeping, so. Gotta write this down.
I do my best thinking just in the bathroom in general. I'll be on the toilet or
Okay, yeah.
TMI.
Okay. I think that's a little too personal. But all right, so
You guys?
everybody wants to bow their heads for the priestly blessing. Our God and God of our fathers, bless us with the threefold blessing in the Torah written by the hand of Moses, your servant, and pronounced by Aharon and his sons, the priests, your holy people, as it is said. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and grant you peace. Yevarecha Adonai b'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'sem lecha. Shalom. So what's interesting too is if you look at the Hebrew where it's talking about this, you see it has a blessing and then it has kahal, which is the people or the assembly, then repeats. Kahal is assembly. Right, no. So I was just thought of that. So anyway, so have a wonderful wonderful week coming up. Tuesday night we have our Torah Club at 7. Wednesday night we have our study, Taming the Tongue by Mark Kinzer. And then again, Shabbat. And Shabbat on the June, it starts the evening of June 1st, which is a Sunday night. So that'll be coming up too. Let's see, anything else? Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos.
Oh,